Hi, everyone, and welcome. We are presenting a webinar today from MHEC called Student Reciprocity Programs and MSEP in the 21st Century. This is about our Midwest Student Exchange Program, also known as MSEP. And I am hoping that you're going to learn a lot today and you're going to enjoy this. I'm Jenny Parks, the Vice President for Policy and Research at MHEC. And I'm joined today by Sarah Appel, the Associate Director for Policy Initiatives and the lead at MHEC in the MSEP program. We've got a few learning objectives we want to make sure that we share with you. Both Sarah and I are former classroom teachers, so we always try to make sure we do that. First of all, we feel it's important to identify current trends and causes for the changing student enrollment numbers that almost all institutions across the nation are witnessing. And then we want to compare and contrast the regional compacts, the 4 compacts, various tuition reciprocity programs. And then we want to make some observations specific to the Midwestern program. These are also the same objectives that we set about to learn about, research, and write about in a paper upon which this slide presentation and this webinar are based. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Appel right now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about why this study occurred when it did, and how that feeds into the work we've been doing.
Thanks, Jenny. Really, it was a time to review. Our program started in 1994, and we've had some evaluations of the program over the years, but nothing as deep as the one that we did to create this paper. We wanted to look to see what the original goal of the MSEP program was back in 1994, and is it still relevant due to the big change that we've seen in the higher education environment over those many years. So not only did we look at MSEP, but we also looked at tuition in general, and we had a really in-depth look at it for, I think we worked on the paper for over 2 years, researching, interviewing, finding resources. So it was heavily researched and led us to some really good conclusions for our own program. As Jay mentioned, we've all seen a decline of enrollment numbers, so we're just going to start there first. So some of the reasons that we're seeing a decline of enrollment numbers is really focusing. This conversation right now is focusing on those traditional age college students. We have seen over the last several years a loss of job opportunities for parents, which caused some migration outside of the Midwest region to coastal areas that might have provided a better opportunity. Of course, the Great Recession had a lot of ramifications, and one of them led to less childbearing. So this specific age of student is, of course, decreasing in numbers. Which you don't have the children, you don't have the high school graduates. So of course we see a decline in that. And WICHE reported in their Knocking at the College Door report that after 2025, the number of high school graduates will be dropping from 720,000 to 670,000. And that's just an estimate from that report. December 19 report from the National Student Clearinghouse actually revealed a nationwide decline in fall college enrollments of more than 2 million. And that was between 2012 and 2019, with the trend expected to continue. And of course, we didn't know back in 2019 in December what was coming up next, and it was the COVID. Again, looking at traditional age college students, we see an increase in gap years that they are taking prior to enrollment. They're not really sure about what their educational needs are, or where they want to enroll in a 2-year or a 4-year, or work in a very specific program that an employer might provide for training. Always financial concerns. And in the recent years, we've been hearing more and more about the student debt crisis, how many people have defaulted on loans, how many folks are, just really concerned that is the ROI on my degree something that I need to take in consideration when I look at student debt ratios. A lot of students want to stay closer to home, and definitely to avoid COVID hotspots. A third reason we've seen a decline the lack of interest in the traditional college experience. And again, we're looking at the traditional age college students. They're focusing on looking for shorter, more career-focused programs that they can get in their own community or in their own state, or a place that they don't have to move, such as growth in online courses and programs. We've seen many opportunities for technology enhancements and growth, which has led to more courses being put online as a result of COVID, and I think just technology in general. And then we've got stackable credentials. So these are credentials or certifications that really don't require a 4-year residential college experience, but they can take them with them as they go and seek employment, and an increase in the number of programs that align with needs of local employers. We've seen employers such as Walmart, Amazon recently has a program, different places in that area that are really focusing on improving their workers' knowledge to maintain and keep them there employed within that organization. And the one that I think is really on our minds here at MEC is this decline of the out-of-state tuition model. So historically,
hey, Sarah, I'm going to jump in. So
okay.
This isn't something that's driving the general decline in the number of students. This is something that is specifically having an impact on the number of students trying to access a tuition reciprocity program.
Yes, thanks, Jenny. Historically, institutions have charged out-of-state students a higher tuition rate, which is the premise for all of our student exchange and reciprocity agreements. Many institutions have stopped using this model, meaning more students and families can access the out-of-state institutions at a lower price point without the need or the assistance of a student exchange or reciprocity program. So in our MEC region, we've got many institutions that have gone to this non-differential tuition. Illinois, Michigan, and North Dakota have institutions that recognize that. Institutions have other means to bring out-of-state tuition down to in-state levels. They use merit scholarships, athletic scholarships, or just plain tuition breaks. An example or examples are Southeast Missouri State University. They've got the Red Hawks Achievement Award, and the University of Michigan Dearborn has the tuition differential scholarship. And both of these are achieving the same thing. They cover the difference between in-state and out-of-state tuition costs. And continuing, what we've seen and what we found in the research is that the loss of revenue from not charging higher out-of-state tuition is compensated by the number or the increase of out-of-state students attracted to the initial school because of the price reduction. So it might just be simply cheaper than the home state that they're located in. And we've seen commentaries from educational policymakers that the out-of-state tuition model is ineffective and is inefficient. And they feel that it hinders students from, really choosing a college that has the best program for them and to make sure that they meet their educational goals. But over the last 3 years, and this is just MEC, our program has seen 13 institutions and 2 states withdraw from our program. But when we've talked with our other compact sisters who do have these exchange programs very similar to MSEP, they're not really experiencing this. So we're not sure if it's just something in the Midwest, if our states here in the Midwest are really working to do this non-differential tuition rate, offering better financial aid packages, whatever they may be. But again, we're not seeing it in our other compacts. Jenny, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I just wanted to just tell folks that if you have some questions, you can put them in the chat. When one of us is presenting, the other one will monitor that. But then we're also going to have some time at the end for Q&A as well, because I imagine there are a lot of folks who have some questions about this and who are saying, oh, I've noticed that in my region or in my state as well. So, nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thanks. So let's talk on a more positive note. We're seeing an increase of enrollment numbers in some areas. We're seeing more from students who are coming from traditionally underserved populations. This includes low income, first generation, our course filling our courses and our programs, mostly online. But again, those numbers keep growing. The National Center for Education Statistics suggests that between 2016 and 2026, we'll see a great enrollment of Black students by 20%, Hispanic students by 26%, and students from 2 or more races at 36%. But there's some caveats here. These students are likely to attend college close to home because that's where they have their best support and their biggest support. And the fact that they just can't really afford to pick up and move somewhere to maintain their pathway to attaining their college educational goals. Part-time, lots of working parents, but we also have been seeing lately a lot of traditional age students who sometimes have to stay to take care of parents with health issues and different issues related to that. And then, of course, we have 2-year institutions. So these students are likely to attend these 2-year institutions. So we're not really sure how the reciprocity programs are going to look or how these are going to affect what they look like in the future. But we've got an eye on them, and we'll definitely make sure to let you know if we see any other trends or other hot topics that come up as a result of this. Jenny, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, just once again, we're trying to situate what's going on in the MSEP program within the general context of enrollment trends, student trends, and within the context of other reciprocity agreements as well. So just always trying to help folks keep in mind what our goal here is.
So taking a look at our regional student exchange programs, there are 4 compacts or regions within the US. You have the Midwestern Higher Education Compact, which is MEC, and our program for student exchange is the Midwest Student Exchange Program. New England Board of Higher Education has their tuition break. Southern Regional Education Board, SREB, has their Academic Common Market, and WICHE, the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Ed, has their Western Undergraduate Exchange, WUI. Now, SREB and WICHE have separate but similar initiatives for their graduate studies, but we left them out of this exchange because we're really just focusing on undergraduate right now. So looking at these different exchanges from the compact view, you can see the start year. Our oldest compact that has the tuition break is NEBI. Theirs began in 1957, and we are the babies on the block, and ours started in 1994. But there's also some differences between all of them. For example, in the MEC region, state and institutional participation is voluntary. Whereas at NEBI, all states and all public community colleges, state colleges, and universities participate due to their state's membership in the compact. And SREB, they have all of their states participating but one, but institutional participation is voluntary, and WICHE is very similar or similar to MECs. We are the only compact that includes private institutions who will provide a 10% discount to students who use their MSEP program. And we're looking at how these programs are affecting students and their choices to attend them. So we're looking at limited to specific academic programs. The only one that is not limited, the only one that is limited to specific programs is SREB. And they have a wonderful program where you can see what academic program is not offered in your state, and you can see where they are, and you can work with SREB to get that discount. So we're now at observations and recommendations for MSEP. So some of the things that we've seen, review and clarify our program goals. And these all came from the paper that we produced. The first one is increase post-secondary education opportunities throughout the Midwest and provide cost savings for students and families within the region, as well as assisting the 2- and 4-year public and not-for-profit private institutions with an enrollment management tool. This was not very clear. There are always questions. Well, what's the purpose? Is it really to serve students? Is it to serve institutions? What is it? And so in July, our MSEP Council came up and reviewed the old goals and said that, yeah, these are still the same, but we wanted to make sure that they were updated and accurate to what we've seen and how we've been proceeding over the last several years. Another one is we want to update and optimize our MSEP policies. And I'll be very honest, right now, we don't have all of those put in one nice place. So we're working on creating a manual for that. And really just to look at what the other compacts have in their reciprocity programs, looking at those for inspiration. What kind of policies do we need to have down? What do they look like? How often do states or institutions need to renew their participation?
I also would add that we have not been able really to define and refine policies until we had this refinement of the overarching goals of the program, because of course policies have to drive the behavior of the program to meet its goals. So we're really at a nice transition point here where we're refining all of these things. So anyone who's always been a part of MSEP or anyone interested in joining, you're joining at a really great, exciting time, because it's becoming more focused and more efficient.
Thanks, Jenny. And again, we wanted to look at ways that we can improve and expand and support our data collection. Over some of the earlier years, we weren't very sure of us collecting the appropriate data that the institutions wanted, data that the states wanted. And we actually had a survey and interviewed with many folks at state higher education agencies and at institutions saying, what is it that you're looking for? So we put together some new data points that we collect on and have started that collection right now. It will be going, starts October 21st until December 31st as we collect and obtain that data from institutions. One of the things that we also want to focus on is trying to develop an IT interface. Right now, the data is completed and submitted in an Excel spreadsheet and emailed to us. So it really takes us quite a while to go in and clean the data and make sure that things are in the right columns and we have the right information. Sometimes we might be missing information if we go back and contact the schools. So it can be very time consuming, which is why our FY 2021 report on MSEP will be coming out here in the next couple of weeks, just because it takes us that long to do that. So we're hoping again for some IT interface to help us with that data collection. And Jeannie, I know that you had thought about some additional data collection points that you would like to see eventually. Could you talk to us about those?
Sure. So of course we want programmatic information so that we can think about the health and the functioning of the program. But while we are collecting the data from our MSEP institutions, it occurs to us that we could potentially use this as a lever to collect information about student migration on a more granular level. We'd like to know not only how many students are accessing which institutions across state lines and which programs they are going there for, but we'd like to know a little bit more about the students themselves, because as we've said, so many of the patterns we are seeing are demographically driven. And so are these students returning students? Are they first generation students, et cetera? We're wanting very much to understand that behavior. We also theoretically would like to know, are these students from rural areas? Are they students, how far is the student located from an institution in his or her own state, a state of residence? So there are a lot of pieces like that. We're not anywhere near getting to that point, because we would have to define the use of that information and we'd have to operationalize those variables. But we're thinking this is a good opportunity for all of us to understand like I said, in a more granular way, what is attractive to students and what they are needing.
Thanks. And if you have some ideas for additional data collection points,
absolutely,
you already are collecting, if you're from a different compact and are on the webinar, or if you're in the MEC area, we would love for you to put those in the chat so we can take a look at those and discuss them. Again, we're always trying to improve the data collection so it's more useful for everyone who is in the program. And we definitely want to look at ways to improve the MSEP administration. Right now, we're at an important juncture because the website that we currently use needs to be updated to a different platform. So that's something that we're looking at. Definitely making improvements in MSEP awareness, which means more outreach to institutions, high school counselors, state higher education executives, and really just trying to make sure that folks know that MSEP is an option for them. And we want to thank you. And we know that we've ended a little bit early with our presentation, but that's because we wanted to hear from you what your thoughts are, what you're seeing in your state. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat.
All right, so we're being asked, do we collect enrollment by a student's zip code? Yes, we do. But we have noticed that in doing so, this generally always happens with zip codes. There is some misalignment in zip codes, titles of degrees, and things like that. But yes, we do try to collect that, and then we try to run our analyses by 2-digit zip codes so that we're able to at least get the rough field in which students are making that trek across state lines to access a program.
And is anybody seeing, again, in their compact areas where institutions aren't participating any longer? Are you seeing more of the non-differential tuition rates? How does that affect your student exchange program? I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are and what you're seeing.
Are there any just comments? Did we give the link for the paper? Oh, Jack Taylor. Okay, your hand is raised. Okay, we can allow Jack to speak. Is that right? Yes, I see that I can. Jack, where are you? Oh, Taylor. All right. If Sarah or why am I not able to? Oh, Jay Taylor. Sorry. All right, Jay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's McTire. Oh my goodness, I really screwed that up. Sorry.
It's a bastardization of McIntyre, but it's McTier. I was thinking about your comments about people moving away from the out-of-state model. And you know how I'm a registrar, and so I've always explained out-of-state to people is the out-of-state rate is what we calculate it really costs to deliver these services to these students on a per semester, per student basis. And so, you know, and the difference is then we get money from the state of Indiana to offset that total cost for in-state residents. And You're both nodding your head saying, yes, that's still the model by which we look at out-of-state. So it's like, how is it then that we're moving away from that model when the funding model from our state institutions is still the same?
Well, I think that's why we do see this pattern by state. And so I'm hearing from Margot at Witchy. Margot's at Witchy, right? Yes,
Yes.
Sarah? Yep.
Yep.
oops, what did she say? She said, of the few institutions that left WUI, they're the Western
The graduate exchange.
because they had moved to a one-rate tuition, most of them have been community colleges. So Jay, in certain states, and I'm inviting anyone else who's on the call who knows anything about this to talk to us about that. Like I said, I think it's going to depend on the funding model in the state. And I think it's going to depend on probably a lot of other factors that we don't even know about yet. We have not gone that deep into our research yet to ask, why did you switch to a one-rate tuition model? But just to know which ones are doing it, and then looking at the enrollment trends and the access of the MSEP program based on that. So Sarah, you've had some conversations I haven't. Have you heard anything in addition about switching to this type of a model?
No, which is concern. And a lot of these had occurred before I came on board, or after like I said, we've had 2 states withdraw from MSEP. And some of the states already have this non-differential tuition in place. And they said that it was mostly to attract students to their campus or to their state.
I mean, I will note a couple of things. When I think of some of the states that have never participated in MSEP, South Dakota is one that has never participated, and it is definitely one of the states where we're beginning to see more of this type of model for tuition. And it is a low enrollment state. It's just a low population state. So I can see that, though I don't know for sure. If there's someone on the call from South Dakota who might be able to shed some light on this, I'm thinking that, it's to attract out-of-state students. In the case of two states that have now recently become inactive in MSEP, Michigan and Illinois, in both of those states, we see a lower level of state investment in public higher education in recent years than we do perhaps in some of our other states. So again, the relative offset might not be great enough to create that differential in those states, especially if they're struggling with enrollment levels. Does that help at all, Jay?
Yes, I mean, I think in our state, I'm from Indiana, and we're still focused on that. One thing that is interesting is that with the growth of online programs and online instruction, we've kind of narrowed that gap. We came up with a blended tuition rate that is our out-of-state online rate is not as high as our out-of-state face-to-face rate is compared to our in-state rate. So in other words, it's narrowed that gap a little bit. There's still a little bit of a differential in the whole 100% online programs, but it's not as marked as the difference between in-state, out-of-state, and traditional face-to-face programs. Sure. And our in-state, out-of-state is almost 3 to 1. It's almost 3 times as much out-of-state as it is in-state. And for the online programs, it's down to maybe close to 2 to 1, but just below that in terms of the ratio. So, and there's some rationale about why we think that's a good way to go. But I think it's also us maybe moving toward that more overall blended rate where all costs just kind of get blended together, in-state, out-of-state, online, face-to-face, because that's the other thing that's affecting this is the cost to have all these buildings going and have all this, all these lights and all this real estate maintained. So as more and more people pick online, and we're part of that trend that's trying to respond to that, I think we'll see more of these blending of rates, in-state, out-of-state, online, face-to-face, continue to blur, I guess is a better word.
Sure. Well, and there are other tuition models too that are coming out that again are I can either say they're being helpful disruptors or muddying the waters, but they definitely complicate the analysis. I know in some of our North Dakota institutions, they're actually going to a program-based tuition rate. So if you're an English major, you don't require a laboratory, or you don't require some of the expensive resources that you might if you are in something like medicine or some of the other laboratory science, especially in sciences.
Yes.
Or even in healthcare, where there's a lot of it's going to cost more to run those programs, whether it's for faculty or the physical learning spaces, or even some of the online work. It's really different than it would be for an English major, or like I was a history major. And so they are going to a program-based tuition model. And so that makes it even less likely that you're going to make your choices about where to go to school because of the MSEP
Right.
tuition discount, which really doesn't apply in those types of situations. Is anyone out there aware of any other emerging tuition models? Because again, and that's what's happening, is we're going into a much more complex way of pricing higher ed, and that will necessarily have an impact on tuition reciprocity agreements. Well, Sarah.
Yeah.
It looks like we have provided our information. We will be this is being recorded. It will be featured on our website. You'll be able to access the slides there as well as the recording. And of course, you're going to be able to access the whatchamacallit. Sorry, my phone rang. You're going to be able to access the paper already online. So if you read the paper, if you look at things and you have some other questions, pop us an email. We're really eager to continue this conversation so that we improve this program in the context of what's really going on out there. In some ways, there are more changes and more things happening out there than we honestly can keep up with. So the more we hear from you, the better. So I wish you all a lovely
Absolutely. And that goes to our sister compacts as well.
Thank you
so much from you. So thank you for help leading us and understanding some of the minutia of the student exchange programs. We really appreciate your feedback on the paper and your continued support.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.